no turning back. You take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
It's the size of Texas, Mr. President.
Get off my plane.
I see dead people. We're in the middle of a war. It's time to pick a side.
Welcome in, everyone, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, listeners of all ages and lifestyles and creed, color, nationality, you name it. You've found Duel of the Greats, Season 3.
So I've been
podcast for a second.
I've been watching some old school Tales from the Crypt recently, and the Crypt Keeper always has some silly little pun version like "Welcome in, boils and ghouls" and silly
boils
stuff.
and ghouls.
That's what that just made me
come
think
up with
of.
magic themed puns for this week, because on the docket this evening is the Prestige versus the Illusionist. If you've been following along, you know that the shtick, the whole reason for being of this podcast is we take two movies and we throw them against each other, let them fight. We have two, we'll say, sort of competent attorneys here arguing their cases. I'm the judge. I'm Steve. Nate and Jeff are my co-hosts. Brandon's on the ones and twos back there, holding us down. And we got a good one for you tonight. This one I think is going to be pretty interesting. We don't have a lot of movies quite like these, so just for the sake of making sure we're all on the same page, this is episode. Is this episode 9?
Socials.
I'll get the socials. I'll get them.
iHeartRadio.
All right. Is it episode 9 or is it episode 8?
I think it's episode 10 technically, but it's only 9 that counts.
Well, we're not counting the fan episode because we didn't count that as part of our record thing.
So it's either 8, 9, or 10, but it is the Prestige versus the Illusionist.
You would think that we should know, right? It's our show.
Well, you know,
I'm the producer. I'm telling you it's 9.
All right,
it's 9. Okay.
It says 9.
Got it.
Look at that. That's why
producer on the
keep
spot.
him around. He keeps us in check and keeps everything.
We seem to run really off the rails when Steve is the host. when he brings us in, we're just immediately off topic.
I like to keep it light. I like to keep it loose. I like to just, this isn't a serious thing.
So before we go any further, I do want to ask Steve, do you have any caveats as to already picking your winner before we start or anything of that nature?
That does seem to be a common theme here, a trend recently. No, I'm going to be fair and impartial, an excellent judicial officer. I have not watched either of these films in preparation for this. I've seen both of them
recently. Yes, yeah,
true.
You've seen.
It's been many years.
You're going in cold.
Yes,
not blind.
I had to literally.
That's
Google
our distinction.
Cold but not blind. Okay. I had to Google the plot because I couldn't remember the plot on one of them. But all right, so are you guys ready? You don't look very ready. You look tired. The world is a tiring thing right now.
I'm ready.
Nate's a new father, so he's got an excuse. I just always look like this.
New again.
New again.
Well, newest. Yeah. I didn't say first time father. I just said
We started this recording. I was literally holding my son before we started.
I know. I thought he was gonna chill with us for the whole show.
No, I wouldn't do that to our listeners. He would take advantage of that, and he's grabbing the microphone.
You don't.
And goo gaga in the mic.
Hey, we're trying to. Go ahead.
You don't want him. You don't want some of his first experiences with humanity to be hearing my voice as I rant and rave about the Prestige.
Real quick question, Nate. Are you at the point where you're still disinfecting literally anything that the kid needs in his hands?
We lived through COVID with my daughter, so I just feel like I honestly know, because now like nothing really scares us anymore because we just had to go through COVID when my daughter was a baby, and now it's just kind of like now it's just like yeah, whatever. I mean, he's fine. He's a second kid. It'll be just fine.
One of my favorite things, videos I've seen online is the two moms sitting at a park, and you could tell the difference as to which is the first and which is the second. The one mom drops a binky and she's like, put it in here, and it puts it in like this disinfectant and pulls a brand new binky out of the package. Here you go. And then the other mom picks up the one that fell, went, and then shoves it right back in the kid's mouth. And I'm like, yep, that's the second parent.
Yeah.
We
that's
just
about
did that
right.
on the first. We knew. Hey, it helps
Well,
the immune system.
that's what they say.
That's why we get rid of vaccines, right? Just let the body heal itself.
I was
Okay,
gonna
Oh,
say
there
we
you
might
go.
as well
There
have
you go.
RFK
We're
Jr. on this podcast.
now we're really off the rails here.
All right.
We're into outer
Well,
space.
you know, we're gonna leave our autocratic world where diseases can kill us at any moment, and we're gonna go back to the 1800s, and we'll see what happens with the Prestige and the Illusionist. So I'm gonna flip a little random coin here on the interwebs. It's somebody call it. Jeff, call it.
Tails.
It is tails. Do you want to go? You want to defer?
I'll go first.
All right. Jeff has the Prestige.
Correct.
And he's going to pull a rabbit out of his hat or pull a hang. I don't know. I don't want to get too deep into these puns. So I'm just going to shut up. Jeff, you have the floor. Wow me.
All right. So with these two movies, I'm going to try and remain calm here as we talk about these because I'll just lay it out there right from the start. Both these movies are pretty fantastic. They're both good movies. So when I look at them and try and evaluate, and I'm saying, okay, why is Prestige the better film? And there are two main reasons that I came up with. Now, one, and it's two things that the movies have in common that I think the Prestige is better at. So, obviously, there's a lot in common, but two main things. So, the first one is that both, even though the movies are about magicians and magicians doing tricks, the movies themselves are tricks played on people. And so I'll get further into that here in a second. But even though I say that the movies are about magicians and doing tricks and stuff, that's actually really the subtext, as neither of these movies are truly about magic, right? There's something else there. Prestige is a story about obsession, and The Illusionist is a story about love. I'll get into that here in a second. So, to point number one here, both the movies themselves are tricks, right? So the difference between the two is is the Prestige as a movie is a trick on the characters within the movie. It brings the audience in to what's happening and gives us enough clues along the way to decipher it. When we get to the end, there's a few callbacks at the end, but ultimately we're left with, okay, we had all the knowledge. We were presented with all the knowledge to know what happened, where this movie was going, and how we got here, right? And it just, the little callbacks are just to give us a little bit extra. Oh, okay, yeah, that happened, and so forth. So that it didn't have to truly explain as much as The Illusionist did in its ending. Now, the another aspect of this too is with the Prestige. We have it's we have to wonder while we're watching it who actually is real in this movie, both in the sense of who is being real in a performative sense, like who is being their real selves, and then actually once we understand what the sort of twist in the movie is, who actually is real, because there are multiple versions of characters in this movie, which is actually kind of funny and very fitting for the show Duel of the Greats, that we have both our main actors in this movie, Christian Bale and Hugh Jackman, playing two different characters in the movie. Technically, Hugh Jackman plays a lot of different characters, but mostly just the two. And same for Christian Bale, which is kind of a fun little aspect. Now, with The Illusionist, the thing that sort of strikes me, and one of the things that The Illusionist does, and it's not the most egregious, I will say, of this movie ever. You know, there are a couple movies that do a similar thing that have just angered me. And what the Illusionist does, it does this similar again. Not the most egregious, but it still does it. Where it's the trick that The Illusionist is as a movie is a trick on the audience itself. The movie is directly trying to trick us by withholding information. Now, the Illusionist tells the story, and it is told. The majority of the story is told from the perspective of Inspector Uhl, played by Paul Giamatti. Now, he sort of kind of goes over how he got some of this information. He's got spies all over. They can follow the Jessica Biel character, who is the girlfriend of the Crown Prince, played by Rufus Sewell. This is his second Rufus Sewell appearance in this season. He sure had a moment, from like 95 to like 2007. He really.
How many podcasts are mentioning Rufus Sewell? That's like we could get him. Like, how many
We could
podcasts
totally
out
get him.
there are like talking about this actor as frequently as we are? I would venture to guess there's no other podcast in the world that has brought him up more than
Brandon?
our podcast this year.
Twice.
Shoot
And
an
we
email to his publicist, and we'll do a interview.
On it.
I've got all my movies behind me. You can't really see, but I have a steel book of the movie Old. We're not going to talk about this movie. It's very divisive, but Rufus Sewell is in that movie. So there we go.
If we get him on, we can watch A Knight's Tale. It'll be fun. It'll be a real fun.
That movie. I love A Knight's Tale, man. All right, lots of good movies. See, that was. I mean,
you guys
Old
are
is a more
now,
recent one, but
you guys are conspiring to take this off the rails now.
It's a Rufus Sewell podcast now. That's what we're doing. We're just going through his whole career.
Just interrupt. I have already found the contact information for his booking agent, so I will send an email.
Boom. Do it. Let's do this.
The producer
absolutely. He can come on and we can talk about how I was robbed for The Matrix being better than Dark City. He'll be on my side on that one. So anyway, back to the point though. So what The Illusionist does, again, we're being told this story from the perspective of Inspector Uhl, Paul Giamatti's character. And he does spy on them, and he makes it known why he would be privy to certain information. But then we are given information that there's really no way that he would be privy to. For instance, he talks about how they had a carriage ride around the city, like after the first time that Edward Norton's character and Jessica Biel's character meet, and they realize that they're long lost friends, lovers, whatever. They're going in the they have a little carriage ride, and he talks about it, but we as the viewer get to see the entire conversation that happens within that carriage ride. Additionally, there's another moment where the moment where the love sort of boils up to the surface between the two of them, and they go on and they have a tryst in a cottage, and then there's a conversation there about the Jessica Biel character running away with Edward Norton, making this they're going to leave together. Forget about the prince. We're reunited. Let's do this. So again, it's not exactly clear how he would be privy to all the information that transpired in that conversation. And the only answer is, well, we as the audience need to hear that conversation. Excuse me. We as the audience need to hear that conversation because it helps make a better movie. But then there's other bits of information and other conversations that take place that we are deliberately withheld from, so that we don't know what. And this is all like they decide they're going to run off together, and they decide they're going to make a plan, but the actual plotting elements of the plan don't come together. And this is something that annoyed me in the movie Gone Girl, and something in the movie The Handmaiden. I don't know if you guys have seen that one. It's a believe it's Japanese. No, it's Korean, I think, film. And my wife loved it. She's like, you got to watch this movie. And a lot of it was good, but it just kind of angered me. And again, The Illusionist wasn't the worst at it, but it just, that makes it feel like, and I don't want to say that The Illusionist doesn't respect its audience, because I don't believe that, but I do think that The Prestige respected the audience more than The Illusionist did, because then you've got all this stuff that they specifically withhold this information from you, and then at the end they go back through all these flashbacks and they show every little piece of it. And in the Prestige, they do it a little bit. They show a few bits of information just to kind of fill in some gaps, but they show all this information at the end about how all this stuff went down. And you're like, well, I mean, we would have no idea that any of this, where it's just like, okay, it feels like a retroactive type of thing. Like, okay, we got to this point. How do we explain how we got here? And they just kind of dump it all in there. Whereas the Prestige felt a little bit more organic and how it did it. And part of that is because it pulls the audience into the story and shows you, okay, the trick is being played on the characters in the movie, not on you, the audience. We're not withholding anything from you, or at least not as much. That are, again, the subtext. We have the magicians and the magic and the tricks and the shows and all that, but the actual plot of the movie, the actual sort of main theme running through each movie is, again, obsession for the Prestige and love for the Illusionist. So with the Prestige, we have everyone just has a rampant obsession, right? Hugh Jackman is obsessed with, initially he's obsessed with his wife, he's obsessed with getting famous. Then his wife dies, he's obsessed with revenge. And then once he thinks he's carried out his revenge, he's obsessed with adulation. He's obsessed with the crowd. He wants to be the greatest magician ever. That's why he so desperately wants to steal the transported man trick. And he wants that because that adulation is going to fill the hole in his heart that his wife left, that he's never been able to fill. And Christian Bale is obsessed with just illusion as an aspect of life, as a lifestyle. When they go and see the magician who does the fishbowl trick, right? Hugh Jackman afterwards, they're talking about it together. This is while they're still friends, of course, and they're talking about it together. And Hugh Jackman's like, "How does he do it?" And that's all he wants to know. He just wants to get to the trick because he wants to be able to replicate the trick because it's going to make him famous, right? Whereas Christian Bale, he's like, this is the trick. As they show the magician sort of hobbling around, he's like, this is the trick. Every time he's in public, he plays this character. He keeps up this illusion the entire life. His entire life is an illusion, and that we get a little piece of the puzzle there when he says that. But it's also showing the difference in their approach and the differences in their obsessions. And in the end, what we have is those obsessions leading to horrible loss because Hugh Jackman he never gets his wife back, and the adulation from the fans never does anything to actually fill that hole. All the while, he's turned into a mass murderer, essentially murdering himself.
You may be wondering why Jeff's dulcet tones cut off in the middle of a very well thought out and compelling argument. Well, that's because the tariffs. The tariffs have now hit Duel of the No. I don't know. I just wanted to get
We used to say it was the wind back in my Royals
There you
podcast days. And it's been pretty windy these days, so that's what it is, the wind.
It is Tornado Alley.
That's true. There's all kinds of tornadoes this past week. I think it's more just, Nate, you said that we always go off the rails when I'm hosting. I think you two are making it worse. You're leaning into this, and now Jeff is sabotaging our recording.
The wind.
Jeff. All right. Anyway, we're not entirely sure as we record this exactly where it cut off, so we're gonna have just Jeff pick up approximately where we think he was.
Yes.
We had a small recess, and now court is back in session. The floor is
indeed. So, I believe where it sort of cut off was where I was talking about, Hugh Jackman was so obsessed with his wife and being a great musician, and then obsessed with revenge, and then obsessed with the adulation from the fans. So obsessed with getting that that he became a mass murderer, essentially murdering himself every single night. Now, and then we have Christian Bale's character, who was obsessed with illusion as a lifestyle, right? Just keeping up this constant illusion. So obsessed was he that this whole plan that he concocted with his double of trading off so nobody would actually know which one was which and all that. It drove his wife to just be falling out of love with him and being depressed about it. She had multiple scenes where she was like talking about when he says I love you and she goes, some days you mean it and some days you don't. Another clue, of course, but very, very good scene. Rebecca Hall, fantastic actress, very underrated, very underused, I would say, personally. But anyway, but yeah, and she ends up committing suicide because of this. And Christian Bale, he almost, it's almost as if it's just the cost of doing business for him. That was had to be done as part of the illusion. He has his daughter that he loves that he still winds up with eventually, but this woman that he loved and that he admits to loving at the end, she takes her own life, and there's really, it's completely and entirely his fault, and he just kind of says like, oh, that's just how it happens, essentially. So, and the only person in this movie who's not really truly obsessed with anything is Michael Caine, and he multiple times he tries to dial things back. At the very beginning, right, we see him essentially commenting on both people's obsessiveness, right? Because we talk about Bale being obsessed with the illusion. He says, "Don't tie X type of knot." I can't remember what the name of the knot was, but he said that's not an underwater knot, and it could get somebody killed, and it does. And then he talks um, to Hugh Jackman when he like kisses his wife's thigh when he comes up there as sort of a fake person from the crowd. Michael Caine's like, if I can see you from the backstage, then so can the people in the third and the fourth row, right? Maybe we should all do a Michael Caine impression before the show's over. So obsession costs everybody in this movie just about something that they love. Okay. And it's very, it's a very powerful impact for hammering home the point of what, and even, we talk about Tesla, David Bowie, fantastic as Nikolai Tesla. And Nikolai Tesla, I know he had some weird ideas. I'm not sure how much he like truly, you get the impression from David Bowie that he truly, or from the David Bowie's portrayal, that he truly wanted to be like a wizard. And I don't know that that's the case. The idea that he wanted to provide free electricity to everybody through the air, like that is actually a thing that he theorized on. But I don't know how, in terms of personality, how accurate it was. But David Bowie he's awesome, but so and even that with the obsessiveness, it gets he's like, oh, it's operatives from Edison's people have come to take me down, stuff like this. It just this obsessiveness that they have that runs through the movie is so prevalent. And then you have The Illusionist, which is about love, right? It's a love story. These two people who were got together as kids and or young teenagers, young adults, and they were prevented from being together because he was a not not an aristocrat, whereas she was. And by the way, a young Aaron Taylor Johnson sighting. That's fun. His star has risen dramatically since this movie. That was kind of cool to see that. Um, and then then they find each other later in life. And the thing with the love story is that it's, we don't, the movie doesn't seem as interested in telling us uh, what we need to know about that. Like we don't, we see them in a few scenes together, and we're supposed to believe how much they're in love just because they tell us, I guess. But it the chemistry between the two, I won't say it's non-existent, but it's passable. I think it's not something that I'm like, oh man, the screen crackles with the chemistry between these two. And Edward Norton is 12 years older than Jessica Biel, and he actually looks even more older, and it was distracting. They're supposed to be the same age or pretty close to the same age. So that felt kind of weird. And so we get these scenes. We get one decent scene. The scene that I've already talked about earlier with the tryst in the cabin. Where they make love and then they talk about running away together, and they sort of fill in some of the backstory. We got school's version of their childhood, but they kind of fill in some of the backstory about what they did in between childhood and where they are now to how much they loved each other and kept thinking about each other and all that. So, we got a little bit of that, but most of the movie is about the magic tricks and the scheming in terms of what is the focus. And so I didn't really feel as compelled by the love story angle as I did about just him operating as a magician, So as I sort of wrap things up here, I look at with those two things, the Prestige, just some added things here. The both movies are very, very strong visual movies. You kind of have to be when it's this sort of subject matter, and both movies are up to the task. But I think the um, the Prestige is stronger in this regard. There are much more iconic scenes, much more just really stunning scenes in this. The David Bowie, Nikolai Tesla walking through the electric bolts in his little machine, as he walks up, like, man, that was awesome. This is the field of light bulbs where they show, the energy running through the ground. They pick the light bulb up, it turns off, put it back on the ground, and it turns on. Like, that was just a stunningly good looking scene. When they sort of reveal all the top hats and things start to click into place about what's actually happening here. Um, Hugh Jackman when he's in the electricity trying to do the transported man trick near the end. There's just nothing close like that with the illusionist. There are some cool scenes, the sword in the stone scene. That was the one scene that I hadn't seen this movie in a while, but that was the one scene that really stuck in my head that I was looking forward to seeing again, and that's a very good one. And the scene where Jessica Biel comes on stage, she puts on the red cloak, and there's people in the mirror and stuff. That's it's a very cool scene. Again, both movies very good visually, but I think Prestige takes it to another level that The Illusionist doesn't quite get to. And as I said earlier, I think the Prestige respects its audience a little bit more with how it gives you information and then fills in some of the gaps. And again, I don't think it wasn't something that I was as angry as some of those other movies with The Illusionist, but it was like I wish they could have found a better way to do this personally. So when I look at the two films and I think, okay, why do I feel like The Prestige truly is the better film? And I think it's because for the two main reasons that I outlined, the trick that the movie is better designed and better provided to the audience with The Prestige. And then I also think if the movies are actually about, as I contend, obsession and love, I think The Prestige is a better story about obsession than The Illusionist is a story about love. So there you have it. That's why Prestige is the better film.
Thank you, Counselor. Nate, do you want to prosecute your case for The Illusionist?
I do, and I agree with Jeff on a lot of the points that he makes. I think there's kind of a main fallacy to a lot of what he is saying, though. Is I completely agree with Jeff that both of these movies are about magicians and they're about illusions. When we think of illusions and we think of magicians, we are thinking in a world where we don't really truly believe that these things are happening. Jeff even said himself that the movie kind of characterizes, The Prestige characterizes Tesla as someone who almost wants to be like a wizard. I think that of looking at these two movies that are both about magicians, professional magicians, I think one of them stays true to what we want to believe about those kind of people, and one of them cheats. The Prestige cheats. The Illusionist, we see things that we cannot explain. And I think a really great thing that the movie The Illusionist does is it doesn't explain every trick. Prestige does way too much of that. It shows us the design of how they actually create these illusions, and it kind of takes away the mystery. Okay? And I know it's supposed to be sort of a behind the scenes thing. You're sort of seeing how magicians work, but you see a lot of how the tricks are formed and the devices that they build to complete these illusions. The Illusionist doesn't really show us that. In fact, we really don't get any of his secrets. Kind of one of the recurring things is the Paul Giamatti character the lead inspector, is always kind of asking the Edward Norton character like how he does certain things and if he could reveal some secrets to him. And he gives him little tips and tricks, but he doesn't ever really reveal these main illusions until the end, which I'll talk about in a moment. The Prestige cheats because at the end of the day, what the Prestige does is, instead of keeping it in the world that we live in, it establishes that, hey, we're working within sort of kind of an historical drama, roughly the same time period, kind of the world that we live in. And then the Prestige says, no, I'm going to throw a wrench in this. I'm going to actually make something that's supernatural. I'm going to have a machine that one of them uses that actually that does something that we can't really do in the world that we occupy. It cheats in that way, and it cheats the audience out of what the illusion should be. What the movie The Illusionist does is we see things that we can't explain, and we're constantly wondering what's going on. And then at the end, it shows us that, oh my God, this really was all an illusion. It was a trick. It works within the world that we occupy. And this final montage where Paul Giamatti is figuring all of this out, we get to see how they designed this whole trick all the way through. There's this great moment where the Paul Giamatti character is really fascinated by this illusion that is done in the film, where there's like a kind of a potted plant with nothing in it, and Edward Norton kind of raises his hand, and this orange tree grows out of the pot, and he's trying to figure out how he does it. And again, as the audience, as you're watching the movie as a viewer, you're like, God, I have no idea how he does it. And you see, there's so many of these things like that. At the very end, when the whole secret is being revealed of how Edward Norton and Jessica Biel get away, a little boy brings up a book. He has a book delivered to Paul Giamatti, and it's the actual mechanics of how he does the orange tree trick, and how they have these wires and these mechanisms underneath the pot that push the tree up. Okay? That's not cheating. That's showing us that the illusionist is doing things. He has designed these things in a way in the world that we occupy. The Prestige, again, is the one that cheats. The Prestige sets up a movie like that. And certainly the Christian Bale character is very much like that. It's just the whole time it's a twin, and that makes sense. That half of the illusion in the Prestige makes sense. But the Hugh Jackman character literally uses a fake machine that isn't real to clone himself. It's not an illusion. It's not a trick. It's real, actual magic. It almost, in some sense, changes the genre of the movie. Are we now watching a fantasy movie? Because this isn't occupying the world that we live in. And they both, by the way, the Prestige, it cheats so much in the way that both of these movies deal with real historical people. Okay, the Illusionist is dealing with the real royal family of the Austria-Hungary Empire, and then of course Tesla is in the Prestige. It sets up the world of both of these movies like, hey, this is a real thing. It's a historical drama and historical fiction certainly, but it's taking place in the world that we live in. And the Prestige says no, not in the world we live in. There's a fantasy element to all this, and so it just cheats in that way. I think that something else the Illusionist does really, really well, and I actually had to look this up. It was nominated for an Academy Award for its cinematography. It is a beautiful film to look at. There's a couple of moments where they kind of do these silent film sort of techniques, where they kind of have this sort of weird grain over the film. There's also this one shot where the Duchess Jessica Biel has gone missing, and there is this extraordinary shot of a forest with this kind of sort of this early daylight pouring through the trees, and then slowly you see all these figures emerge through the trees because they're all basically they're sort of scouring this whole forested area looking for this missing woman. And you see these figures slowly moving up through into the light. It's a really, really incredible shot, and I, having not seen the movie since it came out in theaters, I was really blown away by how beautiful the movie is to look at. But So I think probably it's a little bit better than the Prestige in that regard. I mean, I think the cinematography is a little bit more interesting at times, but ultimately, the reason that I think The Illusionist is better is because it does it capitalizes and finishes with the promise of this is a world that we live in. It sets up a world that we live in, and then it concludes with something, with an illusion, with a trick that has been pulled over our eyes that is real in that world. Prestige tries to do the exact same thing. It sets up a world that we live in, but then it cheats by throwing in a fantasy element at the end of the film. And so the audience feels cheated because it's like, well, that's not, these aren't illusionists. This is just like it's Harry Potter. Like if I was going to see a movie about a wizard, if I was going to see a movie where I knew magic was real, that is going to change my interpretation of the entire movie going back. That's why I think The Illusionist is better.
Thank you for that. I have a couple questions, but
I'd like to
I was
just
gonna
offer a
say,
small point
does
of
that
clarification here.
do you want to rebut anything in there, and then Nate, I'll give you a chance to.
So the Prestige was also nominated for Best Cinematography and nominated for Best Art Direction. So there you go for that. But
Were they
I did.
nearly
got
the
a
same
Prestige.
year? Were they
Yeah.
the same year?
Oh yeah,
I'm
they
just
must. Yeah,
curious.
they were up
I
against each
should have
other.
started
Yeah,
with
both
that.
2006.
One,
That's interesting. Okay.
yeah.
All right.
Illusionist was in the summer of
They both
2006, and
lost.
Prestige was in October. They both lost to.
What they lose to?
Oh gosh, I
Let's
just
see, what
read
was 2006? What even won Best Picture that year?
it. It's in the Illusionist.
Oh, that was
Wikipedia.
The Departed that won that year.
Pan's Labyrinth.
Oh, damn.
Oh,
That's a good year for
yeah.
cinematography. Damn.
I'm okay with that loss. Yeah, I bet
Yeah,
they
I
were
can't.
too.
I'm not gonna fault that.
Yeah.
But also, I did find it interesting. You talk about the Prestige cheating with the transported man trick, conveniently leaving out that the holographic projections in The Illusionist that did not have the technology at that time to do that, and nor was that ever explained.
But the fact that it's never explained doesn't change the fact that we still understand that at the end of the movie he was doing something. There was some kind of mechanism that was allowing him to do that. We don't believe at the end
But
of
how do
that
we
movie
know
that
that,
those
there
were
was a mechanism allowing Hugh Jackman's character to clone himself? So how do we know that that mechanism didn't also have supernatural powers, just like the Tesla's machine did?
because it doesn't establish that world. It would tell us that. The Prestige
No, it
tells
wouldn't.
us
That's my point. That's my
this
point.
is a
That's why the
magical
illusionist.
thing.
That's why the
Knives
illusionist
out.
falls
Knives
apart because
out.
it doesn't tell us that.
There's
It
lots of like in the
specifically withholds that
Illusionist.
information because they know they can't explain it. It's bad
Okay,
writing.
the scene that you like, that's a great scene in the movie that you brought up, where the sword and the stone thing, where he sets the sword right into the middle of the floor and it stays upright and people can't pull it. We never learn how he does that, but we accept because
I've
the
seen
movie.
magicians in real life do tricks like that though.
And that's fine. I've seen magicians in real life seemingly clone themselves and move to it. I mean, I saw Siegfried and Roy when I was little, and they were on stage, and then 2 seconds later, they appeared at a table behind me. But the point is that I don't really think they were doing magic. That's my whole point.
But just
If
because
the
you don't
it,
think it doesn't mean that the movie explains it appropriately and that it was still not explaining something, and that wasn't even like the movie The Illusionist was inconsistent because the orange tree was initially presented as something that could be supernatural because he couldn't figure out how to do it, and then at the end they show you, oh no, it was actually all an illusion. But then the thing that actually gets him in the most trouble, these astral projections that he's apparently doing, that by the way, you get the feeling that the illusionist definitely could not like it. There's just they didn't have that technology back then, so there's no way that he could have done it. And then they don't explain it or even try to explain it, and they say, oh well, because he can't explain it, it must be real. It must be something that he was doing. Like that's you projecting what you want onto the movie and not something that was actually presented in the movie itself.
when we go to see a magician, when in real life, when we go to see a magician or an illusionist or someone that does something like that, we see them do things that we cannot explain. And then we don't expect them to come out and explain it. In the movie The
But we
Illusionist,
are not seeing a magic show. This is a movie, and they do explain things in the movie to us, the audience.
sure. My point is that I appreciate that we see tricks in The Illusionist that he does that do not get explained. But there's a scene where he steps out onto the balcony, he tells all his little followers, what you're seeing is an illusion. It's a trick. It's not real. And you're kind of, as an audience member, you're kind of like, I don't know, is it real? Is this, because I'd honestly forgotten because it's been so long since I'd seen this movie. And then we get this realization at the end of like, no, of course it's not real. He's an illusionist. But I don't need every single illusion walked through in the way that the Prestige does. I don't I
You
don't
didn't. You
leave.
didn't. They didn't walk us through the orange tree either, but they at least showed us that it was a mechanism that did it.
They showed us that it's I guess my point is this. No one leaves watching the movie The Illusionist. No one finishes that movie and says, "Well, I bet there's a chance he really was using magic." No, we leave that movie and we say, "Okay, well, he's an illusionist." All of this could be explained if we wanted to explain it. The movie's not going to spend the time, nor should it, to go through and explain every single illusion he does. At the end of The Prestige, the only conclusion we can have is like, okay, well, there was a magical element to that movie that kind of defeats the purpose of being of like people who create illusions. There's an actual machine that is made that does something that we can't actually do in real life, and that's why I think that movie cheats more than what the what the illusionist does, and how we leave a movie theater after having seen that movie.
I mean,
I having go ahead, Jeff.
I was
Finish
going to
your
say that
thought
the
there. Sorry.
Prestige is, I mean, it's essentially a science fiction film. I'll give you that. But like, I don't think that the fact that it brings in this supernatural element, like, I didn't walk away from Inception being like, we don't have the technology to actually go into people's dreams, so this movie sucked. I don't do
But
that.
I love that you just brought up that example. Inception, it's the promise of the premise. We see in the trailer that they're going to go into people's dreams. We understand the whole point of that movie as an audience member, that when we go into it, they're going to be doing things, and it's going to exist in some kind of a world that we don't really live, where people can go and enter into people's dreams. The Prestige tries to do this thing where it's like, this is a real period piece, okay? It's turn of the century London, and there's these
No, no, no,
magicians,
no,
and
no,
they're
no,
working
no.
really hard, and then it
It does not
changes
try.
it at
It
the
does not try.
end.
It does not try and present any sort of historical accuracy here. It just uses a historical setting. That's completely different. That's
I don't think it's
it's just,
that much different. It's using a historical setting that when we start the movie and we're watching the movie, we accept it as like, okay, this is sort of a time that people actually lived and was real.
I mean,
Whereas,
people do this all
when
the time where they go back and they add science fiction elements to. There's a movie called Overlord, Steve. You've seen it, right? People in World War II and they're
Yeah,
fighting zombies. And
I
it's
like that.
like, oh, no one, they would no people lived through World War II and there were definitely not zombies. Like, no one's saying that. So
but again, people who go into Overlords are aware that
no, they
that's the
weren't.
promise
It
of the
wasn't.
premise.
It was a huge twist. And I don't want to ruin the twist for Sorry to Bother You, so I won't talk about it because I love it too much. But if any of you have seen that movie, that's another one where it's like you had no clue what the twist is, and I'm comfortable saying there's a twist because I don't care. You're never gonna see it coming. But that's another one. So that in and of itself doesn't necessarily say the movie's cheating.
I guess it depends. I don't necessarily disagree with your overall point. I think it kind of depends on what you are expecting as an audience member. I
That's
always
fair.
go back to this phrasing of the promise of the premise. We everything exists within a genre piece. Okay? And movies that work very, very well work extremely well within their genre. And they are models of what we expect in that genre. And when we go into a genre piece, we have certain expectations. When I go into a movie about magicians and illusionists at turn of the century Europe and different, Vienna or London or wherever they are, and it's establishing throughout the movie that, like, okay, this is some kind of a historical premise. They're both dealing with people who were real. Now, again, we accept that the story isn't necessarily true about them, but it's like it has kind of these real historical people sprinkled in there. We expect that this is kind of the world that we occupy and that we live in. And one of those movies carries that promise to the very end, and another movie completely switches genres by saying, actually, there's this
but see,
massive
you're
fantasy element to it.
you're negating the entire purpose of a twist in a movie. That is the whole purpose that twists exist, because it takes you from one genre to a next and it shocks you out of your complacency in the audience. It says, okay, we're in this one movie, and then all of a sudden there's this twist like, holy shit, he was cloning himself. That's real. That really happened in the confines of the movie, of course. And then you come back and you say, this completely reframes every single thing I've seen up to this point. And that is the point of a twist. So to say just because it has a twist and changes some genre that it's not the promise of the premise is completely negating this aspect of filmmaking that has been prevalent since its birth, essentially.
But again, twists can also exist within a genre and still match the promise. Okay, when
But
we
they don't
go into
have to. Just because they can doesn't mean that it's a rule.
sure, obviously it's not a rule. I mean, the filmmakers have made the movie that they want. Christopher Nolan has made the movie that he wants. And by the way, I love The Prestige. It's a great movie. But when we go into a movie like The Sixth Sense, okay, that has a great twist. But again, the promise is this is a little boy who sees ghosts. The reason that twist was so profound and was so shocking and it worked so well is because it was a twist that existed within the confines and the rules that that filmmaker had
Well,
made
yeah,
for
but
that
there's plenty,
movie.
and I named two other examples that completely shift the movie with Overlord and Sorry to Bother You, and it completely shifts those movies into a new genre and does that equally as well. So just
Well,
just just saying that just because it can exist doesn't mean that it has to be a good twist.
I
That's the issue that I have with what you're saying.
I think it's going to come down to what Steve thinks
Well,
because
obviously.
I think
That's-
I
I'm
think
the
we're both
motherfucking
making.
judge. Of course, it's coming down to what I think.
I think honestly we're both making good points, and I think that it's probably going to come down to what kind of story do you like?
Well,
You know, for me, a twist that is going to work better is a twist that works within the confines of the rules that the filmmaker has established for that film.
And
Something like The Sixth Sense, or something even like Ocean's
but
11,
but
like a
even
heist movie, like that. It
even a
works because
twist
it's in front of us.
even a twist that works within the confines of its own premise can still be done poorly. And that was actually part of my point that there the twist that they try to have that all this stuff was happening all along was we were never really given enough information to understand that. If you go back and watch The Prestige again, we were given enough information to understand everything that happened in that movie. And, that's why the top hats were there to show us that they were actually cloning stuff. But in the Illusionist, they had to go back and show us literally every single scene where all this stuff happened and be like, oh yeah, he also did this, even though it wasn't anything that they had even hinted at in those scenes. So, I mean, if you want to talk about cheating, like I kind of feel a little bit cheated with that from The Illusionist.
I think it's going to come down to what
You said you
Steve
had some questions,
thinks.
Steve. Hit us with some questions.
Yeah, go ahead.
so, for the sake of, I've seen both of these movies, but to try to keep this about the arguments themselves, so I didn't rewatch them. Remind me again, what is the nature of this holograph thing in The Illusionist? Someone describe this to me and how it's set up.
So it's my movie, so I'll explain it. So basically, he is doing these series of, I guess what I'll say are kind of escalating illusions
Astral
where it gets to
project
the point.
what they're meant to sort of embody.
Right, and it's sort of like it looks like a hologram, but it's often people that have died, that we are presumed to have died. So people are coming to see these things believing that they're seeing a ghost appear on stage. This becomes crucial because the Jessica Biel character is ostensibly murdered by the crown prince, and then we see her on stage as one of these projections, and so the audience members are shouting out like, "Who killed you? Were you murdered?" And so th- that what ultimately gets the character in trouble is the crown prince is like, I want him, saying to the chief inspector Paul Giamatti, is like, I want him arrested for fraud for all this, and so Paul Giamatti has to get up there after he does one of these things and like arrest him very publicly for fraud and all this stuff. So that's kind of what it is that
And
the audience members are supposedly seeing someone who has died.
at one point, he brings back a child who walks through the audience, and the audience members are putting their hands through this child as if he's a ghost.
Okay. And to clarify, this technology is never explained.
No.
No, the technology is never explained.
All right. Thanks for the clarifications on that. Question. These are both period pieces. You guys know I love history. And I love, I used to dress up in wool and go play history. It's a very sad time in my life, but didn't have a lot of friends. But
We love you
Look back
no
up.
matter what, Steve, even through those
I
We
know.
got
times.
friends now,
That's
man.
why
We're
you
doing
guys-
a podcast together,
That's why you
baby.
guys are
This
true
is it.
friends. You
This
love
is
me
it.
despite the Savory acting. No, it was a great time. Mom,
The
if
real
you're
friends
listening, I
was the
appreciate everything.
wardrobe we made along the way.
The real friends was well, never mind. I was going to get into some of the awful things wool does to a body on a warm day, but we'll leave that. Leave that for another podcast. Which one of these movies used its period setting better? Why does that? So two questions. One, which one nailed the feel? Obviously, we're not from there, but which one do you think felt more lived in, felt more, had a better vibe, for lack of a better word? And then two, did it use its setting in a way to help further the story better than the other movie?
I feel like you got two different questions there.
Yeah,
So I'll try and
two
answer
different
both of them.
questions. Yeah.
So which city or which setting was essentially more accurate and better
And
for the
more
time?
like pleasing to the eye, like as a that doesn't necessarily mean
I
pretty,
still feel
but
those are two different questions.
well,
I'll
kind of.
explain. I'll just let me answer
Right,
your
yeah,
question, and you
sure.
can see if it satisfies it. Uh, In terms of like accuracy, I will concede to the illusionist. I think that is a more accurate representation of a city in that time frame. There's almost sort of like a steampunk vibe going on in the Prestige, because it's so focused on electricity and with Tesla and that kind of a thing. So I definitely think that Illusionist is the more realistic, but in terms of which created like a better atmosphere, better vibes, I think the Prestige wins in that category.
And that's what I'm getting at here, because I mean, period movies, we don't expect 100% verisimilitude. We know that to a certain extent we're only recreating ideas, but it's about what.
And I would say the Prestige is only passably accurate even to that time. It's more about creating. It's almost video game like in that it's more about creating an atmosphere that makes you that gives you the impression of that time more than it is trying to recreate that time, in my opinion. But which I think it does successfully, but I do think it's not as accurate.
I mean, same things I've been saying. I don't know the history. I know that the illusionist tries to be pretty accurate in this, this time in Vienna. Um, Again, I guess this Rufus Sewell plays like a real historical crown prince who I guess there was like rumors that he was violent and like had maybe killed a couple of women. So it actually like uses some of these real historical elements. I think there's probably a little bit more truth to that. And then of course I'll just go back to my same argument that one of them has magic in it, which isn't necessarily true to history. So I'm gonna probably give it to the illusionist there as well.
You both mentioned the cinematography. That was going to be one of my questions. So no need to beat that dead horse. Gosh, I think I'm ready to make a decision. Follow-up questions. You guys really hit a lot of the things that I was gonna approach. So Nate asked, what is an illusion, or something to the effect of, what are we looking for with an illusion, right? And it's, in my mind, and I'm the judge, so that's all that fucking matters right now, is something that, as you guys indicated, we know is not necessarily real, but we're willing to be tricked, but we're always trying to figure out how that trick happens, right? We want to be awed, we want to be surprised, but I think we're always trying to figure out how the magician is doing what he's doing. And these movies, unlike a real magic show, well, real, quote unquote, in real life magic show, an illusion show, give us the opportunity to see how the sausage is made, so to speak. It allows us a peek behind the curtain. And so I think it's more than just which movie most successfully dupes us or tricks us. It's which movie does it in the most satisfying way, and also kind of lets us in on the secret and shows us the answers. But again, in a way that is satisfying. It can't just be there was a rabbit in the hat the whole time or something like, it's got to be a way that keeps our interest and is compelling. So, all right, I thought of one more question in that vein that I want to get you guys just a quick hit on. Which one of these movies, well, I know which one you have to argue, but why is your movie, how does it still hold up on rewatch after knowing the reveal? Does it? Like, are all the clues made more obvious and therefore they don't work anymore, or does it increase the
I
enjoyment of the
will.
film?
Jeff conceded a couple things to the Illusionist. I will concede that to the Prestige. I think the Prestige probably does a better job of dropping more hints that when you know the reveal, it probably is a little bit of a better rewatch. Whereas the Illusionist, its secret is it's interesting and it's a happy ending, but it probably doesn't put those clues into the narrative as effectively as the Prestige.
That's what I was gonna say.
What is the Napoleonic maxim? Never interrupt your enemy when he's making a mistake. So
Uh,
just like, I don't
we're
need
big
to.
enough, man. We can admit
Yeah, not
when
to
when
say
the
that
other
it's a
side
mistake to
has
admit
a
it, but yeah, it's like no need to gild the lily and talk any
yes.
further. Oh, this was tough. I texted Brandon in the middle of this. I said I've gone back and forth several times.
This is a fantastic week. This is one of the best weeks we've had. Both these movies are just fantastic movies. I love them both.
The biggest thing hearing both of your arguments did was make me kind of pissed off at myself for not rewatching them. I think I even said at the end
Never
of our
too
last
late.
episode, I'm like, I'm really excited to rewatch these, and then of course I didn't. So, all right, I'm trying to think of how I want to approach this. Do I want to just say it, or do I want to try to do a build up here? The pledge and the turn, and then
Yes.
the reveal. I'm not skilled enough. I'm no what's his face, Angier or Eisenhower, Rowan Gardner.
Eisenheim. Yeah.
So I'm not gonna build it up much more. I was very convinced, Nate, by your arguments about the fact that they seem to, in the Prestige, it seems to pull something kind of out of thin air and say, well, this is how the sausage was made. And I was gonna probably rule that way. But the more and more that Jeff poked at it, the more we revealed that your movie has just the same flaws. And the Prestige, there's one point from the arguments themselves that I think is dispositive. There's another point from what I just remember about the movie, but I'm not including that in my decision-making process, but I want to talk about it. The transported man machine, whatever they call it, it's not like it's just revealed out of nowhere. It's set up within the movie itself. So while the movie is, ostensibly based in reality, it's not as if it's revealed post facto at the end of the movie and like, this is how he was doing it. We build up to it, right? And we see the clues with the multiple hats and the rabbits and stuff. So yes, while it is fantastical, it is science fiction, it's not a deus ex machina. It's an integral plot point that's built up throughout the film. So based on all that alone, I rule for the Prestige. Based on the arguments we got there.
Aha!
I think he successfully rebutted your arguments about that.
2 in a row for me.
And all other things being equal, I think it is kind of See, this is where it's so hard to separate what I know from watching the movie, but there's more of a wow factor with the reveal of how everything went down in the Prestige, I think, than the Illusionist. And part of that is something neither of you really talked about. So I'm not. Again, I think based on the arguments themselves, we have a winner at the Prestige. But to take it a step further, I think the whole stuff with the transported man and all that's almost a red herring for our purposes because that's not really the twist. Again, we saw that existed. We saw how he did it. The twist is the Borden and what's his face being brothers, being twins. Like that's the twist of the movie, right? Or am I misremembering it? Because that's the thing that is just hinted at throughout the
There's
whole
a
thing.
few twists that kind of fall on top of each other. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
That's certainly one of them.
I am the decision's already made, so you can't take it back based on my knowledge. But for almost 20 years now, my assumption was always that because they talked about how he visited Tesla, Christian Bale's character. My assumption was that he did it once and he realized how fucked up it was, and so he didn't do it again, but he kept the guy.
Who, Borden?
What?
Christian Bale's character?
Yeah.
No, they're born. That's his twin. They were born together. They lived their whole
Where's
life.
that
There's a lot of
revealed?
debate. There's a lot of debate about this in the Prestige community. That is
What?
it.
I thought it was
The
just
Where
Prestige
was that
community.
revealed? Like what makes you so certain? What was it about in the movie?
well. Now you've got me
It's
questioning. I
certainly
thought it was
possible.
just
It's certainly possible that I
No,
missed it, but I
so
just want to.
no. There's a debate about whether they were born twins or if it's exactly what Jeff is describing. That he went to go see him once, he copied himself one time, and he thought it was so messed up that he didn't keep doing it. Whereas Hugh Jackman was so obsessed with it that he was willing to just die over and over and over again to continue to create the trick. Whereas um, Christian Bale's obsession was we can live our life. Two men can live their life as one man. So it's actually, which is also equally kind of messed up in some ways, but it's just two different obsessions of how they did it. There's a lot of debate about whether they were born twins or if he
Okay,
copied himself
interesting.
one time.
I was gonna feel real silly if this was like totally, but if there's a debate, I can at least understand it.
well. That's even more.
That's
I mean,
interesting. So
there's
here's
multiple readings.
two things that I thought about, one for each movie that are interesting sort of thought experiments, both involving the end. Number one, with the Prestige, do we think Angier, Hugh Jackman's character, is he the original, the real one that's there? Because he says at one point he's like, you just hope that it's not you every night falling into the tank. So that brings into question, could it have possibly been him at one point? Is that actually the real one? And then number two is at the end of The Illusionist with Paul Giamatti, and I hadn't thought about it. I've seen this movie a few times, and I hadn't thought about it until this rewatch. But could it be possible that, like, because we never, do we see Jessica Biel again after she supposedly dies? Like,
Yeah, so there's a very quick thing where it shows him when we're getting all the
like where she's
information. The
like
scene is
dropping
being
her
revealed.
little locket.
Yeah, dropping her like it, and then he puts something in her mouth, kind of Romeo and Juliet style, and it
Oh,
shows
that's
her
right. That's
waking
right. That's
up
right.
from yes, it shows
Okay,
her like
yeah,
waking up
yeah.
from death. Yeah.
That's true. Okay, I forgot about that. Because I was like, what if? Because they talked about like Paul Giamatti. He even admits his character, like, I'm terrible at figuring out tricks. All this stuff. So it's like,
Yeah.
what if all the flashbacks were just him sort of manufacturing his own happy ending, just imagining all these tricks, and then she's actually dead and it didn't actually happen. Like that was a thought that I had because when he gets on the train, Edward Norton, he gets on by himself. We don't see Jessica Biel on the train anywhere. So is it possible that he's notoriously bad at figuring out tricks? He thinks he's figured out the trick and he thinks he's got this, but it's just another time where he's failed at figuring it out, and it's actually not a happy ending. She's actually dead. Um, that thought just kind of popped into my head as I was watching it. But you bring up a good point. But then again, he's imagining that scene as well, where he's pouring the stuff into her mouth. So could he be imagining that as part of the trick, where he thinks, because all this stuff, it seems obvious when we think about it. Like, oh, of course he just does a Romeo and Juliet and just pours the little whatever the toxin is or whatever.
Man,
You
I
know?
gotta rewatch these movies. These sound so awesome. I don't remember the Romeo and Juliet bit at all. Oh man.
Well, like Nate, it's like a 2-second scene where he just pours something in her mouth and then she like shocks back to life, and then that's all we see.
Yeah.
So
I will say now that the decision is made, I think I did a pretty good job of pretending. The Prestige is, I think, a much better movie. The Prestige is one of my favorite movies of all time, so it was hard to
Yeah.
argue against it.
If it was
What you're
gonna just
talking
be a
about,
vote
like
on
Steve,
I could
watch it
tell your heart
again.
wasn't in it. I could tell.
Well, listen though, like there's like Steve, you need to watch it again because you're saying like the machine is revealed like throughout the movie. The machine is revealed in the first shot. With the very first shot of the movie
Yeah.
is a bunch of hats, and then he
Mhm.
says, "Are you watching closely?" It's genius.
gotta
Yeah.
rewatch this movie, man.
The,
Yeah,
the,
the
the, the
the
whole twist is revealed in the first shot of the movie, and then he actually says, "Are you watching closely?" He tells the audience to watch closely.
Oh,
The
what a
scene in The
great movie.
Prestige where Hugh Jackman sees the trick for the first time, and you don't see it. You hear the ball bouncing, but he's recounting it to ScarJo, the Scarlett Johansson character, and she's like, "Was it good?" And he's like, real contemplative. He's like, "He had a new trick," and she's like, "Was it good?" And he just goes, "It was the greatest magic trick I've ever seen." And you see him just go into the first box, and then you just hear the ball bouncing.
Mhm.
It's like one of my favorite movie scenes of all time
I,
because
I
it
had I
doesn't
had
really
down that
fully show the trick. It's oh my god, it's so good.
I had down that I think it might be one of Christopher Nolan's seemingly most personal movies. Like everyone loves to. There's this weird sort of internet sort of groundswell recently of like calling Interstellar a masterpiece, and I like that movie. You know, it's fine, but I don't even think I'd put it in the top 3 of Christopher Nolan's best movies, and I absolutely would put Prestige in top
Prestige is
3.
my favorite. I mean, I'll come right out and say it. I mean, he's probably the most. I mean, certainly one of the most unique and accomplished filmmakers of our lifetime. The Prestige is my favorite movie of his. I like it
Yeah,
more
The
than
Prestige and
Interstellar. I
Insomnia
like
are
it more
probably
than
my top 2.
Inception. Yeah, it's just, and again, because it's so. I mean, I just admitted it on the rewatch. Like, rewatch that movie, and it's so rewarding to rewatch it, and you see
Hmm.
all these little hints throughout, and it's. I love it. It's really one of my favorite movies of all time. I love it. And The
Yeah,
Illusionist, by the way, is really good.
it's
But
very good.
when I rewatched it, I said to my wife, like literally today, we were driving around together. We were taking my daughter somewhere, and I was like, I got to figure out how I'm going to argue for this movie tonight because, like, I really do love The Prestige. Like, it is the better movie, but
You've
I'm gonna do my best.
welcome to my world. What was the stupid movie where I
Right.
had to lean in? Oh, the romantic comedies. Well, you did hit on something. Some critics that didn't like The Prestige, or not necessarily didn't like it, but were, less than overawed. They said things like, gosh, where's this one? I lost it. God damn it. It was something to the effect of like, well, it's okay, but here we go. R.J. Carter. Oh, there you go. Of The Trades, I guess as a magazine, felt, quote, "I love a good science fiction story. Just tell me in advance." So
That's your point. There you
Yes.
go. There you go.
I wish I would have had that quote. That would have been great.
um,
Yeah, because I went and looked up, Roger Ebert's reviews of both, and
he liked The Illusionist better, right?
yeah, he gave that 3.5 stars, and he gave The Prestige
Mhm.
3 stars. He liked everything but the ending of The Prestige. So he might have actually felt not necessarily feel the way you
I
do
will
now
s-
that you've revealed, but feel the way of your argument.
Well, he said
I will say this. Well, Roger Ebert, go back and read a lot of his reviews. This is just kind of a little thing about him. He did not like twist endings.
No, he didn't.
I
he
won't say
called
that
it a
as like a
cheat,
blanket statement.
just like you did.
Yes, he did not like Fight Club. He did not like The Usual Suspects. He wrote some pretty bad reviews about movies that have like what we think it was really great twist endings. That was just kind of a sort of a quirk of his. He did not like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I've
And that's one of the things that works so well, I think, about The Prestige is how it is a twist, but as you said, it's all right there. I mean,
Yeah.
it makes you, almost forces you to go back and rewatch it. Some movies, it's a complete, I don't know, Deus Ex Machina, but this is not. It's
or,
set
or
up
it's
and
or it's that once you know the twist, you come back and all the magic is gone. But
Sure.
I feel like I pick up something new from the Prestige every time I watch it.
Prestige is one of my, in terms of a movie theater experience, it is one of a handful of movies, and I say like a handful, like maybe 4 or 5 movies that I've seen in a theater in my life that I remember exactly the theater I was in, who I was with, and I literally remember the movie ending and wanting to rewind it and watch it again right then and there. And that's only happened 4 or 5 times in my life.
Yeah, I remember I hadn't seen the movie and I did a blind buy because I was a Christopher Nolan fan. So I did a blind buy and then I'm watching it in college, and it's like I started it, and then one of my friends, Chris Maddox, he came in and he watched it with me. And then afterwards we were like, holy shit. And we started talking about it, and we had it on DVD, so we could rewind it. And we were like, oh, go back to this scene. And then you like picked it out. And yeah, that was one of the few times that I'd actually done that with a movie.
Well, I'm glad Nate wasn't able to bamboozle me into picking the inferior film.
What would you have
I would have
done?
felt.
That would have been a
I would have
funny.
felt. I would have felt so bad for Jeff. Like I would have been like, "Oh, hey, I
I would.
won. I must have argued it really well."
You had me for a second with the cheat argument that Roger Ebert did too, but I thought, Jeff, you did a really good job rebutting it, and then not only rebutting it on its merits, but then pointing out the fundamental flaw of the illusionist can't rely on that if it has its own problems in the
It
same
does.
vein.
Jeff makes a great point. Like, particularly, I could buy the stuff on stage, but the little boy walking
Yeah,
through the audience, that was almost too much. Because it's like,
that's where I
look,
lost it.
like you can't. That's involving like hundreds of people. Like you can't.
Yeah,
Like I could
because
totally buy the people on stage. Like okay,
even the Rufus
I'll go
Sewell
with
character, he's
yeah.
like, oh, set up, angled mirrors or something, and then he was Edward Norton's like, that's the way it could be done. So I might have accepted that if it wasn't for the boy.
Yeah.
Brandon,
Little
did you
boy
have any
really
Hubris,
did.
that
thoughts?
was.
So I don't have a lot to say. I will say that I do agree the Prestige was a better movie. I think my hottest take is I did not like Ed Norton's acting in The Illusionist. It kind of killed it for me.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
that's Nate. You're a big Ed Norton guy. So did you like his performance better than any other performances in the Prestige?
That's this is kind of weird. I think something that really makes the illusionist work is I don't know if I could compare the performances to something in the Prestige. In a weird way, they're kind of giving very different performances. In the
Yeah,
illusionist, he's this very like kind of calm figure, and he doesn't get panicked. Whereas like the other two guys are so obsessed, and that's kind of what guides a lot of the performance. For me, Edward Norton and Paul Giamatti, who's also in The Illusionist, are just very watchable actors to me, and I'm
yeah,
totally admitting that's just a pure preference. The reason that I like them so much is I kind of like anything they're in. They just kind of elevate every movie that they're in with their presence just because they're kind of
yeah.
watchable actors. So I don't think this was Edward Norton's greatest performance or anything, but it makes the movie very watchable to me, just having him in it.
Having said that though, I thought Paul Giamatti killed it in this movie. I don't know. It was like something about watching the
He
movie.
always kills it.
I was like,
That's his thing.
I always forget how much I love watching him in movies, and especially the
He's so good.
serious undertone. And he's not some goofy side characters. Like he's kind of one of the top main characters, and I just thought he did a great job in the movie. I will say, and you could ask my wife this, I minus the duplication of Hugh Jackman's character, I called both twists halfway through both movies. I had never seen either of these movies before.
I was gonna say, if you'd never seen
I had
these?
never seen either
Oh,
of these
man.
movies before, and we're watching it, and I went, "That's both Christian Bale," and my wife was like, "What?" I was like, "The other guy's Christian Bale."
Even knowing that it was, when I rewatched it, I'm like, I still don't see it. Like in the makeup and stuff. I mean, granted, they like hide his face mostly, but
my
it was still really good.
and my problem was trying to figure it out because I can't help but try to figure out what is happening
Sure.
in these movies. And just like as soon as the scene where Giamatti's character is on the train station and they walk by him and he overhears, and I was like, they're gonna fake her death. And that was just like my whole thing from start to finish. And yeah, the kid walking down the aisle, I was just like, that was like the one thing that I think really set me over this one just isn't as good as the Prestige. And I also say that as a massive mark for anything Christopher Nolan does. And so it was just one of those, but I enjoyed both movies. Having never seen them, I enjoyed both movies. I thought the Prestige was way better and more well done. But I didn't hate them. And I was just like, oh, these are both good movies. Those are my only real.
It's funny because I actually think they're probably closer than all the rest of you seem to think. Because like I think the Prestige is better, but I not demonstrably so.
I felt like the manner of which The Illusionist was filmed was almost like they were trying to do a love letter to old-timey, not old-timey, not that far older movies, but just how they shot older movies that maybe would have been in the era.
I get what you're saying. Yeah.
Like, I know, like, they did the whole flashbacks at the beginning, had the weird halo effect and a little glitchy looking like you're watching old film.
The coloring, there was like an interesting filter that they had on the camera that kind of made the reds and yellows kind of pop a little bit.
I seem to remember like a lot of longer and medium shots. Is my memory serving me correct?
Yeah. It's definitely not as
in the setting than.
It's not as stylish as the Prestige, but it was nearly as beautiful.
Yeah, and where I'm saying I didn't think it was Edward Norton's strongest thing I've seen him in, there was a part of the way I noticed him doing some of the acting amongst the other players where it did feel like, are they just trying to film this like an older style movie in that sense of it's a love letter to these old, like in the time, like throwback type of filming. I wasn't sure, but I did find that a little interesting.
Well, I'm glad you got to experience them. They're both really good movies.
Yeah.
I'm glad we had a fun little argument about it. You guys went at each other's throats for a second, but
God, I said I was gonna. I stayed mostly in control. I didn't say he didn't know anything about cinematography.
That's true.
I didn't say that at least.
I'm forgiving you for that.
I did text Steve back and I said, this is also the best back and forth they've had that has not turned ultra negative at any point.
You did, didn't you? I just now saw it. Oh God,
we're getting better. We're learning.
You're learning.
Well, just in time.
Our third season.
Yeah. Cooler heads have prevailed here, but they certainly don't prevail next week when we have terrorists taking out various flying planes, I believe is the term you would use. Planes. Air Force One, an executive decision. Terrorists.
One of which is a president. The third presidential kidnapping movie that we'll have. Does executive decision, is that the president? I haven't seen it.
No. It's just a
the president has to. Well, he has to make a decision. It's an executive decision, but he's not. The president isn't really he's not really a character, and you got to see it, man. It's great.
Well, I'm going to see it because I won't be judging this week.
So Nate's the judge, right?
Yes,
I think so.
So who am I?
No.
I was the judge last week.
You were?
Yeah, because I picked
Little Big League, and
you were the judge from.
Because rookie of the year, Little Big League was last week.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay, so Nate, who am I spending for?
Hold on. Let's spin for. We'll spin for Steve tonight.
Steve, do you have a preference?
Oh,
I've never seen either of these movies.
But you've never seen. Oh my God.
I guess
I've only seen Air Force One.
A lot of these movies, when I see trailers, I go, "This looks so convoluted. I have no desire to watch this."
Well, you're in for a treat. I guess by what I was gonna say when I just freaked out there, I was gonna say you've never seen Air Force One. I guess Air Force One really is my choice.
So,
I mean, it's regardless of whether or not you like it better, it's the more prominent of the two. We can agree on that. I think
that's fair. Yeah,
that's fair enough.
Yeah.
All right, gentlemen.
Now we sing our theme song. Get off my plane.
Steve got Air Force One.
Fuck yeah, Harrison Ford, my guy.
That'll be interesting. I don't even know who's in executive decision.
Steven Seagal.
Kurt Russell.
Steven Seagal.
Actually, I will tell. I you know what? I was gonna save it, but I'll tell very quickly. I'll tell before this episode ends. He's not in the movie that long.
Oh, man.
Spoiler alert!
I've never seen
it. Well, it's not a spoiler. Like he dies pretty early, and there's a rumor that part of his character was not supposed to die, but he was so insufferable that they actually killed him off a little bit early, just because none of the other cast wanted to be with him. It has Kurt Russell. It has a young Halle Berry. It has John Leguizamo,
Yeah,
Oliver
John
Platt.
Leguizamo.
It has a great cast.
Oh,
It's got
that's
a ton
yeah.
of people.
It really
Okay.
does.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
got a really good cast. Yeah.
Who are
I kept wanting to
the
think
politicians?
Wesley Snipes. He was in a movie around this time, like a Rising Sun or something. That was like a.
I don't know.
But anyway.
I don't know. Oh yeah, BD Wong is one of the.
Oh, I love BD Wong.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
What else? Oh, Joseph Thomas Morton, Joe Morton, the guy who plays the scientist in Terminator 2.
Oh,
Yes.
Miles Dyson. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. It's
Oh
got a
man,
great
this
cast.
is a
It's
a
gonna
hell
be
of
a
a
fun
cast.
week. Even though Jeff, you just hate action movies.
When did I ever say that?
You don't like Top Gun. You will not go see Top Gun.
Hey,
What can we call it?
we should maybe shout out the loss.
Passenger 57. That's the Wesley Snipes movie. An airline security expert must take action when he finds himself trapped on a passenger jet when terrorists seize control. But that was 92, so it was earlier than this. But that's why I was making that confusion.
I never saw that one.
You
Brandon,
know,
that's a good point.
Top Gun is.
Speaking,
You say it's an action movie, but
before
is it really?
Before we go into any negative about Top Gun, let's also mention that we lost Val Kilmer this past week.
That's right. R.I.P.
R.I.P. Be your
He's been in
Huckleberry.
this week.
He's been in Tombstone. We talked about him a lot for Tombstone.
Yep.
So
he was a Batman, for God's sake.
We contemplated doing a special
and not the worst Batman. I'm just going to point that out.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Actually,
we contemplated doing
did you know Bob Kane, the creator of Batman, before he died, said that Val Kilmer was his favorite Batman?
Boom! Look at that.
It's a true fact.
Look at that.
It's a true fact.
We contemplated doing a special episode of The Ghost in the Darkness.
Bob Kane was wrong, by the way, but still, I feel like I should say that.
But he's allowed to have an opinion.
Yeah,
he's allowed to have an
Bill
opinion.
Finger,
he could have a wrong opinion.
Whose opinion I would have rather have had.
But Ghost in the Darkness and The Island of Dr. Moreau both came out in the same year, and that would have been an interesting little. I don't think we'll do it, but
maybe we might. Let's do it.
Maybe we'll.
Maybe
that's
fun. We can do it between season 3 and 4. It's just a fun little one-off.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I forgot to drop the socials earlier, even after you reminded me. We're at Duel of the Greats, most places. TikTok, it's at Duel Podcast. You can email us at duelofthegreats@gmail.com. We love to read your fan mail. That's about all I got, guys. This was a fun one. These were good movies. If you've still not seen these movies, go watch them.
I do have a little quick housekeeping.
Yes.
We are now on iHeartRadio for anybody who wants to do that. I have also cleaned up the links on both psaink.com and in the show notes for the last episode and this episode now. I used to have a Google Play, a Google Podcast link, and a Stitcher. Both of those are defunct now. So now
get them out of here.
The main links, there are tons of RSS aggregates that will yank our thing and put it on all sorts of distribution platforms that we don't really have to worry about. But the ones that we promote on the website and in the show notes that we have links that are prominent are iHeartRadio now, Apple, Spotify, and Amazon Music are the four prominent ones that we make sure everybody uses. They're the people that are used to get podcasts that people have links for directly.
All right. Why don't you...
We got 3 weeks left this season.
3 weeks left. What is our score?
Some good ones. I'm 2-5. I know that.
I don't know what I am, so I guess maybe we can edit that in here at some point, but who knows?
We can open
Brandon,
let's see. We can go through. So Deep Impact versus Armageddon. I lost that week. And that was
you and Nate, right?
Steve, you won.
Oh, Steve. Well, this isn't going to be very good.
Or was that
podcasting?
How about we just open the next episode with the full stats with where we're at?
All right, before we go, Brandon, tell them what you got in the works, because we're all probably going to be a part of this as well.
You are going to be all part of this, and by the time
if you like hearing our lovely voices,
by the time this episode comes out, I will have announced that too. So I had.
I thought you already announced it.
I announced that the podcast was. No, you're
this.
good. You're good. I announced that the podcast was coming back, but I hadn't really dove back into it. So I had an idea around COVID that I thought it would be fun to try to watch and rank every superhero / comic book movie. It just because people like ranking things and creating arguments and a little fun discourse. Plus, as a massive comic book and superhero person, it was just like, this fits my interest and I get to do something I enjoy in the first place. But we're going to have some rotating guest hosts. I'll be the main host of the podcast. These three knuckleheads will rotate in and out every week, as well as a surprise guest. Some things that I haven't fully announced yet, but they'll be able to manipulate.
Rufus Sewell will be the surprise.
The surprise guest. I will say I did email his booking agent.
You already did it. All right.
I already emailed her.
Boom.
So I found her information. I sent her an email, and I even expressed to her that I come from the world and background and way of life of thinking of the worst that can happen is somebody gives me a no, and you'll never know unless you ask. So I'm asking. I literally put that in the email.
That's beautiful.
There you go.
But we're gonna start a project of watching and ranking superhero and comic book movies, and these guys will even be able to manipulate each other's rankings throughout the watching, which I will. I'll be breaking all that down separately, and we'll do a little introductory episode that will take place to explain how it all worked. And
it'll be fun.
There'll be able to be fan interaction with manipulating the rankings as well. So
I smell shenanigans.
That's the point.
The bad blood season. Revenge will be a dish best served
Very
very
Jason Todd DC Comics of you, Brandon.
So
to get a comics reference.
Just so that we can throw this in here for the hell of it. Did you guys watch the 5-minute clip with Crypto for Superman?
Superman, I did watch it, yeah.
No?
Not yet.
I threw the link in there, Steve, if you ever felt like watching.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, I need to go see
it. Jeff, I know because he owns a dog, will agree that is a total dog move.
Oh yeah.
The way Crypto behaves in this clip. So when you guys watch it and anybody watches it, if you're in the position Superman is in for any reason in the start of that clip, that is exactly how your dog will behave. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, for sure.
So, all right.
Well, thanks everybody. Right. I don't know if this part's still going to make it in the podcast, but if it does, we appreciate you and come back next week.